Speaking of Eddie Alvarez, on Saturday he fought Dustin Poirier, and this has been talked about a lot since the fight on Saturday night. Should the fight have been ruled a DQ? Was it the right call to call it a no contest? Did he mean to throw illegal knees? Well, there's only one person that could really weigh in on all of this, in my opinion. The third man in the cage. He is Herb Dean. He is one of the very best in the business. He is a pioneer. He is a veteran mixed martial arts referee, and everyone can go online and talk about what they think they know, their opinion, their 2 cents. You're not licensed officials. This man knows, and he's on the show right now, and I can't thank him enough for coming on and giving us his 2 cents on all of this. He is joining us right now via the phone. Herb, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Thank you so much for coming on. So we have a lot to discuss here, and I really appreciate your time. Here we are, a little less than 48 hours removed. Do you stand by your call? Do you think the right call was made, ruling it a no contest?
Oh, of course I do. I think that is, yeah, I definitely stand by that, ruling it a no contest. I wasn't able to get, my computer was acting strange. I wasn't able to get a PDF of that little chart, but there's a little chart I made for, it helps me when I do my referee course teaching officials, how we interpret that rule as far as for what to do when a foul happens, whether it was intentional or unintentional, or if there's damage or if there's not damage. So I don't know if you got to look at that.
I actually am looking at it right now because I saw that you tweeted it, and I would suggest anyone who's maybe watching this live to pull that up. Your Twitter account is right there on the screen, Herb Dean MMA. And so for those that may not be looking at it, and for those that would love to hear your point of view, could you tell us how you got to the decision of, okay, this was unintentional. Yes, it was an illegal strike because he was down, but it was an unintentional illegal strike, which leads to a no contest. How did you make that call?
Right. Well, it was the strike, the definite strike that did damage. He was down, his knee was down, and he was kneed in the head. What I call an intentional foul would be an example of an intentional foul. Let's say a fighter's laying on his back, you jump up and stomp him in the face. Maybe like Wes Sims, Frank Mir, I believe. Mm-hmm. That might be a good example. There's no way you can say that this person is trying to fight within the rules. Eddie had his face, his head was over Poirier's back. He was not able to. I can't imagine a way where he would be able to see his hands or his knees. I believe that he was fighting in earnest, and thought that his fighter was not grounded, and there's no way that I could say that he knew that for certain. I attempted to warn him before he went in with that knee, but it was loud in there, and I can't say that he heard me. So I don't think that he threw I don't believe that he was trying to fight outside of the rules when he threw that knee. I can't say that he was.
Right, and do you like the fact that there is even this distinction between intentional and unintentional? Like in other sports, if you commit a foul, the referee doesn't then have to put himself in the athlete's mind and try to decipher whether it was intentional or unintentional. And yet you are asked to do that. Do you like that there is that distinction there, or would you rather it just be, all fouls are intentional and thus illegal, and thus that would lead to a DQ? What do you prefer?
Well, I think there's a difference with the sport, and so because the sport is a fight, and so. When I never, that was a really good question. I never had anyone ask me that before. And so I'm thinking about it now. I do like it that way. Okay. What I don't like is what I don't want to do is read people's mind. I think that if I were to start reading people's mind, that brings up a lot of issues, like privacy issues. Am I just going to read their mind about the foul or about other stuff, Mm-hmm. But so I try not to read their mind. I'm just joking. All right, I can't read people's mind.
Right.
So what I can do is if something's blatant, I can call that. If I don't, I can't read whether somebody intentionally does something. But if there is a blatant foul that is totally outside of the rules and no way can be seen as an accident, then I think that there should be a larger punishment and the ability to disqualify that person. So I do like the separation. If I have someone who just does something that's totally outside the rules and is blatantly against the rules, I like that there's a difference between those two type of fouls. And what Eddie did not fit into something that was blatantly outside of the rules.
So another thing that was brought up was the fact that he threw multiple illegal knees. Forget about intentional or unintentional. It was clear that Dustin's hand was down, which means that he's a down opponent and you can't throw a knee. The fact that there were multiple knees, did that give you pause? Did that make you think, well, maybe, if you do it once, okay, but the second time, this should be, this should be viewed as intentional and thus a DQ? Did you think about that at all?
Well, yeah, well, first of all, here's the way we describe a downed opponent. I describe a downed opponent, and this is the way, I don't know if that's something I want to ask you. Have you ever, sometimes the cameras are often in there when I'm doing my rules meeting with the fighters. Have you ever heard the rules that I give to the fighters?
I don't think I've heard them in its entirety.
Well, or even just a briefness. So in the UFC, I do more of a brief rule, and one of the things that I go over, and most of the fighters can say it with me by heart. The fighters are really gracious and patient to sit there and listen to me say something that I've been saying for probably, 15 years, the same thing. I rule a downed opponent as supporting weight, because obviously if someone's weight is being supported by their hands and by their feet and the fence, and then they reach down and touch their fingers, there's lots of gamesmanship that used to go on with that. And so we started for quite a long time ago, it's very established, that we rule a downed opponent as supporting weight. Mm-hmm. Supporting weight means if you snatch their hand away, they're going to fall on their face. So that's what we call a downed opponent. Otherwise, we get into situations where guys start playing games. And all the fighters know about this. In this sport, it's referred to as playing the game. And so that's how we avoid that.
Okay, and now how about this distinction between some commissions where some have adopted the new unified rules, others haven't? And so, for example, in New York last month, you need to have 4 points down. In Texas, they haven't adopted the new rules. One hand is okay. Do you feel like this is leading to some confusion with the fighters? Because if we were in New York on Saturday, those wouldn't have been illegal strikes, correct?
Well, I did not rule them as illegal here.
No, but meaning there wouldn't even be any.
I did.
It wouldn't even be a stop.
Yeah, I didn't believe that they were supporting weight.
Okay.
And so I just want to make that clear.
Yes,
and that goes into the instructions that I gave the fighters before the fight. In the instructions before the fight, I always go over. You can ask any one of the guys who are in this sport. They've heard it 1,000 times. A downed opponent is anything but feet supporting weight. I've actually given those instructions to the commentators. I think I've given those instructions to Daniel Cormier before. I went over it with Joe Rogan before. But I know that those guys there, they got a lot on their plate. To sit and have to talk about what's going on for 6 hours. There's no other sport, I think, where these guys have to do that.
No, sometimes more. I think Saturday was 7 hours.
Man, and to think about and to be interesting. I try to do it, and there's no way I could do that. So and I think we're all trying to figure this out. I think what would be beneficial though is if I were to I think Joe Rogan and I, we haven't really talked about the rules. Every now and then we get a chance and we chat about stuff, but we never had anything where, we're focused and I'm sitting down letting them know how we enforce the rules and why, and let them weigh in on it, you know what I mean? Because they have an opinion and, they've been around the sport a long time. So I think that would be something that's beneficial, you know what I mean? Because sometimes I hear them making interpretations that make sense, but that's not how we do the rule. And the reason why we do it that way is, of course, because when you're trying to apply something, the practical part of it is there's so many things that come up. And so that, there has to be, there's certain ways we apply the rules, and there's reasons why we do it that way.
Do you also make a point to tell the fighters before the fights in the locker room, whenever you see them, that, okay, in this state, which we're fighting in, it's the old rules, the new rules. You didn't have to do that, last year, but now because of...
Yes, I do. And I talk about that. And yes, of course, I think that's it's very confusing for the fighters that I don't think it should happen that way. I think we should all be on the same page. And this new rule, I think, is going to, in the sports places where it is legal, I think it's playing out interestingly, because it's like, I mean, it's a hard thing to, because the way the fighters are taking it is that if they wish to ground themselves, they need to put both their hands down. I would suggest to anybody, and I'm sure the fighters have figured this out, go ahead and put your knee down. I have a hard time telling anybody to put your hands away from your head, especially both. I think in combat sports it's useful to keep a hand around your head, because even, let's say you put both hands down, you can't be kneed, but there's a lot of legal techniques the person could do to you, punches, elbows, things like that could knock you out. So
right.
You want to have a hand around there to defend your head.
Does it frustrate you that some commissions, some states have not adopted the new rules?
Well, it doesn't frustrate me that some haven't adopted it. It frustrates me is that it's separate. Is that we have two sets of rules. However it came up, however we got there, new rules, old rules. I just want the rules to be consistent. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing we could do for the sport. So I'm not saying that the other guys need to adopt the rules. I'm not saying these guys are wrong for changing rules. Everyone's trying to do the bottom line is, people have opinions that for me, it's not about me. I'm in here to serve these fighters. And I'm just trying to do the best I can do with that. And I think that having a consistent set of rules is the first thing that we can do to serve.
Are you confident that sooner rather than later this is going to happen? Because I can only imagine that it makes your job just that much more. I mean, I think MMA officials have the toughest job in sports because so much of what you do is subjective and in the heat of the moment. There's a lot going on there. And I feel like this just makes your job tougher. Because fighters may complain, I didn't know rules, this and that. The announcers are confused, and then you get all this hate, this vitriol. Are you confident that this is going to happen sooner rather than later, that everyone gets on the same page?
I don't know when it's going to happen. I wasn't a part of making the change.
Yeah.
I would get more active and start talking to the guys who did make the change. I talked to some to the different commissions, because of course I work in the different commissions.
Yeah.
Some of these guys are going to change because I think they have adopted the change, but it just takes a little while for it to go through their the way their government works. The way so I think some of these states where the rule is not being applied, I think will be applied. I think they intend to, but it's just a matter of time before it just takes a little time before it gets worked out legally. And then there's some states who have decided that they don't like the new rule and that they're not going to apply it. So I don't know if they're going to do that.
How do you feel about the argument that some make that knees, no matter where they are thrown, on the ground, stand, whatever, should be legal? That this rule of downed opponent, not in Japan, they're legal everywhere. Would you like to see that, or do you like the rule?
Well, the bottom line, it's a rough sport. I've worked with both those rules. I've competed under both those rules. It doesn't really make a difference to me. I just like things to be consistent. That's all. Okay.
But you don't have, a preference?
A preference?
Yeah.
A preference? No, I mean, I think when you're training for something, you know what I mean? You figure it out.
Okay.
So a knee's a knee.
I've heard you say this a couple of times, that it was very loud and you don't know if Eddie heard your warnings. Have you ever made a call based on that, on the fact that it was loud and you're giving the fighter the benefit of the doubt?
Well, right now I'm doing that. So let's say I had stopped the fight and given him a warning.
Yeah.
And that would be a hard warning. When I stopped the action, there's a warning I would do on the fight. Hey, watch those. Then there's a difference. There's a hard warning. Stop action. Hey, you're being warned. And, I may not take a point, but I do stop the action and warn a fighter. Maybe he may lose a position because of foul. Then if something like that happens again, now someone's been given a hard warning. I can't say that they did it on purpose, but I can definitely say they're being irresponsible. And so then that's different.
So did you consider after the first knee stopping the action, hard warning? How do you know when to, or when do you decide to do that?
I told you that I didn't call under the rules that I gave.
Yeah.
I don't believe that he was supporting weight
at all. Okay. So why did you stop it eventually?
I believe his weight, because his knee was down when he received the knee that did the damage.
Okay. All right. After the second one, right?
Yeah, there's a knee where his knee is down.
Yeah.
And that's where the damage is done.
Okay.
And so then that's why I saw it.
On the broadcast, the UFC, I think, has gotten a lot better at being transparent, and they showed you talking to Mark Ratner, sort of explaining what your decision was going to be. This is not something that I've seen in the past. Why did you talk to Ratner and not, or did you talk to the commission?
I came out to talk to the commission. I actually came out to talk to the commission, but Mark Ratner was there as well.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to, I've already stopped time. I've already, everything has been decided. There's not an urgency to get the action going again. It's always, for me, I think I want to be a team player and let the commission I'm working with know what my decision is going to be and explain it to them, because there's no rush at that point.
Right. Are you surprised to hear that Dustin is now appealing the decision?
No, I think I'm not surprised. I didn't know that. I'm hearing it right now.
Okay.
I didn't know that, but I think he can appeal it if he wishes to. That's the first I've heard of it.
But just given the fact that it seemed like, from my perspective, that he was okay with it in the cage, like what they were saying and just his demeanor, and then. Well,
I don't want to judge it by that. There's a lot going on. Guys have a lot going on. You know what I mean? He's dealing with the fact that he's got. I mean, I can imagine he needed some time to process and decide what he wanted to do about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. He just had a match. Things. Yeah. So I have no idea why. I can't explain why someone would choose to or not to do something. That's for them to explain.
And just curious, in a case like this, like if a fighter appeals something, do they call on you to then give like a testimony? How does that work?
Well, that's happened before.
Yeah.
One time a fighter appealed, and I saw a replay that made me change my decision. I made a decision in the moment that I thought was right, and then in the replay, I saw that what I thought was a knee to the head actually hit the guy's tricep before hitting his head, and it knocked his head back. And so then I went and I did give a statement about what I thought happened.
Do you think that replay should be used no matter what in all jurisdictions?
I think replay is useful, especially with a fight-ending injury. I can't see a reason to not, especially once it's a fight ending. Once the fight has already been stopped, it's not, because you don't want to start stopping the action to go to a replay, because then people you take momentum and things like that away from people. But once everything has been decided, I can't see a reason not to get the most information that you can get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And by the way, since we have you, what was your take on what happened in Buffalo? Do you feel like the right call was made in the Weidman-Mousasi fight?
The Weidman-Mousasi fight, I think I talked about that. I did an interview about that.
Yeah, but no, you didn't talk to me about it, Herb. This is different.
Okay, yeah, so let's go it over again. The call was, because I'm so focused on mine.
Sure.
It was the same thing. There was a knee, right?
Yeah.
And the knee was decided, they ruled that the knee was a fair blow, right?
Well, initially, I think Dan Miragliotta thought that he had 4 points down, and so he stopped the action. But then I guess he saw the replay, and the doctor spoke to Weidman, and he said that he could not continue because he, thought that he was hit with an illegal knee. So that they then awarded the victory to Mousasi, because they said legal knee, guy can't continue. It's a TKO.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay, so you were okay with it?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. The legal, it was a fair blow. The fight, the fight cannot continue due to a fair blow. So that the result is TKO.
Is it tough sometimes when you have these fighters who are being asked questions like, what day is it and stuff, and they're in the midst of a fight and they've been punched in the head? Do you feel like we're doing the best? We're using the best course of action to determine whether or not these fighters are able to continue. I know it's tough and there's no exact science, but sometimes it feels like there's a lot of pressure on them, and both physically and mentally, and you can understand why they may get things wrong. You get what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I think so, but I think that's into the assessment and that the doctor does it, the physician does.
Yeah.
And so maybe that might be one of the tools they use, but I would imagine that they're using some other things that maybe we're not qualified to critique. to come to their assessment.
Okay. And are you happy? And I ask you this all the time, but given the current state of MMA officiating, like as someone who watches so much and is a part of so much, are you happy with the progression of the talent that's out there? Judges, referees? I mean, it's amazing to me when I hear sometimes, what the referees make, and you guys are officiating, fights where there's hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line, if not millions of dollars. And so I wonder, is it's still the same guys?
Are you asking me if I like a raise?
Well, yes. Would you like a raise first off?
Of course, I always want a raise.
Yes, but you deserve a raise.
But I love my job. I love doing what I do. I'm passionate about it.
But basically, what I wonder is, are there enough good referees and judges? In 2017, the sport is 24 years young. Are you happy with the way things are progressing, or do you feel like there is a need for more?
I think things are moving definitely in the right direction. I feel that in the beginning that there was a difference between people from the sport and some of the regulators that they weren't used to the sport and didn't understand what it took to be a qualified MMA official, and I think that's different now.
Okay,
and I think that they're getting people who have history and understanding of the sport, and so I think that's all you can ask for, right? I think that the judging is a very hard job. I think and we're always looking at people are always looking at different ways to do it. I think that's one of the things I would like to see happen is that maybe we always are reviewing our scoring system and how we're going to apply it.
Yeah. And and that's another issue, right? With the new rules, the old rules, the scoring system is different, correct?
Yeah, the score, the criteria is a little different.
Crazy.
So so that's something. But I think at least that means that people are thinking about it.
Sure.
I have some ideas about it, but I think it would be something I want to write out a little bit more. And but yeah, I think there's always different ways to look at how you're going. You know what I mean? How you're going to evaluate who's the winner.
Do you like the new scoring or the old scoring better?
There's things I like about both.
Okay. Do they ask for your opinion when they institute these rules?
Well, the thing about it is I can't totally blame them. I mean, before, when my opinion was in there more, but I do get my opinion in there, but when it's in there more is when I was actually being pushy and showing up. I can't say that I've showed up, I haven't been involved in every one of the meetings and every one of the emails. And so, I think that there's some things that I would like to get I definitely think I should weigh in on, because I think I've got to apply these rules more than anyone. And so I can think of a lot of problems or a lot of things that might be good about what they've done because I've actually used them. But, I'm going to make sure that I reach out and talk to people more about it. Well, also, Big John has been, he's been pretty active with it lately.
Yeah.
He and we talk a lot, so even on some of the things that they're going to apply with some of the new rules, he and I discussed some of them and came to some agreements, and I thought that it was reflected in the rules that they made.
By the way, how come you haven't shown up as much?
Man, I think that because things have changed with the way that they're doing it and the people involved, and so I think it's and more things are getting done, and so I think so it's time for me to show up more.
Okay.
Whereas before it was a little bit different it was a little bit different.
Okay. And could you explain, before I let you go, you were in the main event, you officiated the main event, and there was some talk I saw as well that maybe it went on a hair longer than it should have. Why did you stop it when you did and not earlier?
Well, I mean, he was turtled, and that's a hard call to make.
Yeah.
His body wasn't relaxed as if he was as if his limbs weren't responding. He was turtling. He wasn't responding back, but you got to give a guy a chance to respond. I saw that he was framed there, and so I gave him a chance. He didn't respond. I stopped it.
Okay.
When I did stop it, he did stand directly up. So, he was hurt, but it wasn't. He wasn't completely unconscious. So I think when a guy's not completely unconscious, I give him the benefit of the doubt to try to work it through.
Does it drive you nuts, Herb, that you do this for a living that you have, certification and things like that, and yet even during this interview, people are like arguing with your points?
No. I mean, people are going to have their opinions. People can argue with their points. I'm not here to... I didn't show up on your show to argue with people or to take their points away. That's their right. They can have as much fun with it as they want. I'm here to give some transparency into how I make my decisions, and to so that people can understand why we do what we do. And I think that's it. I think that I have this job is a very important job, and it's very sacred to me. And so if I'm liable to the fighters and whatnot. If somebody doesn't like me, that's not what I'm here for.
Great stuff, Herb. Really appreciate it. And if it means anything, if you go back on my Twitter on the night, I was 100%, for whatever it's worth, and I know it's worth nothing because I am not an official and I have no certification. I agreed with your call, and I feel like, you, Big John, best in the business by far. If you feel that way, then...
You know something?
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, it does mean something.
Thank you.
As far as for what I like to do, I like to have conversations with people who are interested in the sport. People who are there, who are involved and interested. So when I have so even if they're not an official, when I have a conversation with a coach, he may critique my call. That means if he thinks I should do things a certain way, that means he should think I should do it consistently. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's going to be his fighter next time. So I like to have conversations with people who are interested. I definitely consider you interested.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate the transparency as well. I wish more were like you in the sport, but it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. And again, thank you for everything that you do for the sport and the athletes. It is greatly appreciated on this side of the table. Appreciate it very much.
All right. Thank you.
All right. There he is, Herb Dean. Herb Dean, Big John McCarthy. 1A and B. Choose which one you want to call A and which one you want to call B. He explained it. You can have your point of view. I'll take his. And it's great to hear that he stands by his call. It'll be interesting to see what happens as far as the appeal is concerned.